Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. This is going to be my video on Kanye West Famous. It's really hot, so I have a fan on right next to my computer, so you might be able to hear it. Even if you do hear it, it should just be like a soft. I've recorded a little bit before I recorded this video, and I couldn't hear it. But if you guys can hear it, I'm sorry, but it should just be like a little soft, like buzz or something like that. But hopefully you guys won't be able to hear it. But if you do hear some kind of like whatever undercurrent or something like that, it's the fan that I have sitting here. So this video is going to be about Kanye West Famous video. I said in my BET Awards review that I was going to do a video on Kanye West. So since I recorded that video and uploaded that video, FRANCHESCA has actually done a series or whatever, a segment on Kanye West Famous video. My video is not going to be like that. Her video is kind of touching more on like the feminist and or like womanist aspects of it and how it plays into rape culture and the idea of, you know, bodies and the female form and the male form, how he has the naked male figures lying face down, so all you see are their backs, but how he has the female figures of Amber Rose, Rihanna, and Taylor Swift, as well as the trans figure of Caitlyn Jenner face up, so you can like see their genitalia and you can see their breasts and things like that. And she had some really interesting things to say about that. So if you're interested in like that aspect of the video and why the video was problematic, then I would definitely recommend watching FRANCHESCA segment. I will include a link to it in the description box. There have also been some different conversations about the nature of celebrity, because basically the concept of the famous video is 12 of the most famous people in the world naked in bed together, and it kind of revolves around this idea that celebrities and famous people are still just people, and so Kanye like chose to place them in their most vulnerable state, naked and asleep, and you know, and all types of stuff. And there's a conversation also to be had about that. But that's also not the conversation that we're about to have. This is not going to be a meditation on celebrity or the nature of fame or feminism. I'm just not critiquing the video in that way because that was not what immediately stood out to me when I saw it. I want to talk about the inspiration for the video. The inspiration for the video was a painting called Sleep, by an artist, Vincent Desiderio. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Vincent Desiderio. The inspiration for much of Kanye's art for probably the last 8 to 10 years is he has this intense obsession with this white European aesthetic. And that's what I want to talk about because that's something that's been really interesting to me for a while, and it's something that I don't see a lot of people discuss. Now, there's nothing wrong with liking classical art from the Renaissance, Italian art, Baroque art, French art, again, a European aesthetic. There's nothing inherently wrong with liking that, but why is it that that is all really that Kanye West is inspired by? Like, that's really been Kanye's sole creative inspiration for about the last 8 years, from like the music he's putting out to the types of video concepts that he's coming up with, the album art, the shoes that he's designing. You know, it's this obsession with this like white European aesthetic. And so after the famous video dropped, we were having this conversation on Twitter that originally started out, we were talking about how so much of Kanye's art revolves around replicating and co-opting what already exists, which again is another conversation. Like, you could take this conversation in so many different directions. And you know how he pretty much filters everything through the white gaze. You know, what we were talking about on Twitter kind of devolved into this conversation on art as filtered through the white gaze. And this idea of, you know, emulating yourself and your art after this serious art, this high art, you know, which 9 times out of 10 is this white European aesthetic. And someone said, you know, that we shouldn't question Kanye replicating art, and especially this kind of more Baroque high art, especially because it introduces this certain type of art to a mainstream, and especially an urban mainstream, aka a black mainstream, that wouldn't know about it, which I thought was a really, really interesting thing to say, because number one, first of all, just because you're introducing something to the mainstream doesn't mean it is okay to co-opt it, right? it doesn't mean that it's okay to replicate and co-opt something that already exists. That's an argument we hear about cultural appropriation all the time. Oh, just be fucking happy that I'm bringing light to your little bullshit ass project. And that's a slippery slope. That is a slippery slope, and Kanye is sliding. He's sliding down it. And second of all, at what point is a line crossed where you're not creating, you're just imitating this white art? Like, at what point does Kanye cross that line? He clearly idolizes this European aesthetic. His art is filtered through this white gaze and this idea of white art as high-class art, as supremely creative art, as extremely important art, you know, as this, you know, Kanye's whole world really seems like it revolves around this certain particular idea of art as filtered through this white European gaze. And this is something that I've seen many black artists say that they struggle with, you know, even when they start, I mean, and it was something that I had to deal with as a creator, as a writer, you know, when you write and you realize that your ways of thinking and your ideas and your concepts are really heavily informed by the white gaze and by the things that you were taught in school and by the books that you were assigned to read and by the things that you were not assigned to read. You know, you kind of have to go out of your way to find a lot of black art. But Kanye has like all this money and all these resources, and yet, like, why doesn't he get inspired from black art? Why is this very specific type of art, and, you know, and the life of Pablo, and, you know, why is this what Kanye is choosing to introduce to the mainstream, the urban mainstream, the black mainstream? Why not, you know, some really amazing black art? Zelly Imani has this thread going on Twitter that is like black artists, like the whole thread is like black artists that don't get enough shine, you know, and there are artists that operate within this aesthetic that Kanye likes, like Kehinde Wiley, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, like Kehinde Wiley, who he himself kind of manipulates this idea of high art, of this European aesthetic, and he inserts blackness and he inserts black people into it. Like, maybe Kanye could do something, you know, with Kehinde Wiley, you know, but no, like, Kanye is really, really zoned in on this specific white European aesthetic, and it really feels like he's trying to elevate his art by emulating the things that he sees in the white gaze, right? He clearly equates this European aesthetic with money, with class, with status. He places a lot of artistic value on this aesthetic, and he introduces it to an urban mainstream, and that annoys me. It annoys me. I'm not gonna lie. The reason why it fucking annoys me is because you have people like this person that I was talking to on Twitter that says, like, well, you should just be happy that he's, like, introducing this to an urban mainstream. Like, do the kids really need Kanye to introduce them to Pablo Picasso? Like, you know, like, do the kids really, like, does Pablo Picasso need your fucking Googles? Like, does he really, like, over a Kehinde Wiley or another kind of, like, lesser known black artist that Kanye could be, like, putting some of this shine on? Like, probably not. Like, and even the lesser known artists like Vincent Desiderio, who I had never heard of before Kanye did this famous, you know, piece, you know, that's a lesser known artist, you know, much lesser known than a Pablo Picasso or Vincent van Gogh or Salvador Dali, you know, artists that we learned about in school and things like that. And it's like, I just wish there was more of a balance, like there was more of a balance. But when you're strictly inspired by this white European aesthetic and all the art you make is filtered through this white gaze, it's just like a really, really interesting kind of phenomenon to witness. Like when Kanye's making his art, he's like, yes, and we own Picassos, and we go skiing in Vail, and we have white male confidence, darling. Like, and this is what we do, which is something he literally said. He literally said he had white male confidence. Like, these standards of white European opulence and affluence and brands, and translating that to a mainstream urban audience and creating this cultural currency around these ideas, you know, for black people and for especially black youth, as opposed to maybe drawing from a variety of different inspiration points and vantage points and bigging up black artists. When Kanye made his first clothing line years and years and years ago, I remember, and it got bashed because all his clothing lines get fucking shitted on, and the vast majority of them get shitted on for being derivative, which is what he does. You know, he derives his work from other sources that already exist. His works get bashed, his clothes get bashed for not being creative enough, for being too derivative, and for copying other artists. And I remember he got bashed, and he's like, you know, they just don't understand my art, and, you know, I'm not previewing my shows anymore, and he just, like, really went off on this tangent. And I remember saying from then, like, what Kanye needs to do, like, since you want to, like, be into art and, like, fashion and whatever, and, like, you're so into it, and you know, you've always had this, like, soft spot for, like, fashion and clothes, you know, if you want to, like, move to Paris and, like, you know, open up your own fashion house, whatever, you have all this money, and hire a bunch of, like, hungry young black creatives, you know, maybe some black Europeans, some black French people, because they do exist, some black Parisians, or, you know, some of these kids fresh out of Parsons and the New School out of New York, you know, hire a bunch of young black creatives that are just, like, bursting with ideas that, of course, will be inspired, you know, by things that already exist, but also with maybe perhaps some new ideas, and try to, like, come up with some new things and some new ideas, and, you know, get these kids a foot in the door and get them into the industry. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And I literally said this years ago, and I've been, like, saying it and saying it and saying it, and I'm still saying it now, that that's something that I wish, you know, that he would do. And it's just like, and it's like, and I've been to Europe, right? Like, I've been to Europe, I've been to Paris, I've been to Versailles, and yes, Versailles is very beautiful, and the gold, and the gilded walls, and the paintings, you know, but that's not the only beautiful place. That's not the only beautiful place in the world. Italy is not the only beautiful place in the world. You know, that is not the only type of art. You know, the art that you see hanging up in the Met, and hanging up in all these various galleries that, again, white, male, European, you know, classical, and formed by this really, again, white, male, kind of heteronormative idea of what art even is, you know, and that's really informing the way that we think about art and the way that we create art. And I just really see that with Kanye West. And it's just like, that's not the only type of beauty, that's not the only type of talent, that's not the only type of genius, that's not the only type of innovation, and that's not the only acceptable kind of art, you know. And this love of whiteness, white affluence, white creativity, and white creatives is very strong in Kanye. It's, like, extremely strong in Kanye. And his art is really filtered through the white gaze. And that's a conversation I wish we had more discussion about art as filtered through the white gaze, and the question of what is art, what is serious art, what is important art, what is legitimate art, you know, what is high art, what is art worthy of being replicated? Since Kanye is just going to replicate, and be derivative and take everything, you know, that he sees, why does he consider this to be the only type of art worthy of being replicated? You know, what is this idea that white art, European art, French art, Italian art, you know, is immediately real? It's real art. This is real art. This is serious art. This is upscale. It's high class. It's this genius art form, and I just have to make my own version of all of it, you know? And this is something that we've kind of talked about before on my channel, right? This weight. That's what we're talking about. This weight that's given to whiteness. This weight that's given to white opinions, and my hair, and white art, and white creativity, and white ideas, you know, this automatic weight that it's to be taken seriously. This weight that launches 1,000 startups for white people, while people of color have to fight for angel investors, despite the fact that black women are the #1 entrepreneurs in this country, you know, that is weight. That is the weight of whiteness. That is the weight of whiteness. This idea that you just hold this weight and you have this presence and you take up this space just because you're white, and you take up this space in art, and you take up this space in business, and you take up this space in politics, and you take up this space in social justice, and you take up this space in activism with your opinions just because you're white. And it's just really interesting to see Kanye recreating these ideas over and over and over and fucking over and over and over again. Like, if Kanye is gonna recreate some shit, like, why fucking Picasso for this Life of Pablo ass album? Why? why Vincent Desiderio for this video? You know, like, since we're talking about, again, kind of bringing mainstream attention to art and introducing art to people that maybe haven't thought about it, you know, like, why just these European white artists? You know, why? Why not be in Roger Walker, who do some really interesting, kind of solemn, very solemn, serious photography that Kanye would probably love? Why not Kehinde Wiley? Why not street etiquette, you know? Like, why? Why? You know, and I just feel like I've been saying this about Kanye for years, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more obvious, you know? Like, we get it. Like, we get it. We get it. You're in this, you know, Versailles. You're in this fucking Versailles-ass phase. Like, you've been in this phase for, like, the last 10 years. Like, Kim is, like, your white motherfucking Botticelli Hottentot Venus, you know? Like, we fucking get it. Like, you want to just co-opt all the fucking European-ass art. Like, instead of, you know, hiring a bunch of young, black, hungry creatives to fucking create for you, actually create, instead of copy and co-op pre-existing works, you just want to, like, remain in this stagnant-ass motherfucking phase. And it's just like, does Picasso really need more attention? Do we necessarily need young black kids and young black creatives Googling motherfucking Picasso or Desiderio when Kehinde Wiley's art could easily be recreated in the same vein? And we got into this conversation on Twitter, and a lot of people were, like, bringing up other artists, you know, or Gordon Parks, or Basquiat, or James Van Der Zee, you know, black artists, black creatives, some new, some old, some modern, some contemporary, some traditional. Like, instead of creating all this cultural currency around whiteness, why not create some cultural currency around some of our own artists? Because, again, like it or not, it's undeniable that Kanye has impact. He has influence. He creates cultural currency. You know, he references Desiderio for a video, and now Desiderio is cool. You know, he says, you know, whatever he says in the famous song, me and Taylor might still have sex because I made that bitch famous, and, like, now that's, like, a whole thing, you know, like, so now if you fucking reference that line, you know, you're cool. If you reference Desiderio, if you know about Desiderio, you're cool. You know, that's cultural currency. That's creating cultural currency. You know, that's creating this idea around, you know, if you know about these things, it's cool, it's interesting, it's cultural, it's cultured, you know. And people like Kanye get these platforms to create this cultural currency, and they just so rarely ever use them to elevate blackness, and rather they reinforce the status quo of whiteness. And it's not just Kanye. It's not just Kanye. Y'all know I've given Beyonce shit for this same thing. I've given Rihanna shit for this same thing. I've given Jay-Z shit for this same thing. It's not just Kanye, but I will say that it's especially Kanye. And with some, you know, really blatant in your face, I want to be white type shit. Like, Kanye is one of those types that's mad at white people because he's not one of them. Like, he wants a seat at Mass's table so bad. He wants a seat at Mass's table so bad he can fucking taste it. Like, he wants a seat at Mass's table so motherfucking bad. He will cut his nose off to get that seat. Like, and if Massa won't give him that seat, then Massa is the problem. But as soon as Massa gives him that seat, oh, it's all motherfucking good. You know, like, we're new slaves, and capitalism is bad, and the white man won't finance his fashion shows because he's fucking black, and blah, blah, blah. You know, when white people are not letting him in the circle, when they're not letting him in the circle. But once he starts getting in the circle, him and Kim are on the cover of Vogue, and, you know, now all of a sudden, you know, he's selling Confederate flag merchandise, and you know, everything's all good. You know, you're not actually railing against capitalism or new slaves or how the white man won't finance your show. Really, you're railing against the fact that you want to be white to get those things, and it kills you inside that you can't. Like, it kills you inside that you can't just, like, be white and have those privileges. And for me, it's totally different. Like, I don't want a seat at Mass's table at all. I don't want to be white to have privilege or to lord over anyone else. Like, I just want equality. And there's a real difference between wanting equality and merely wanting the privilege that white people have. And I'm going to say that again because I think that is a nuance that is often lost with a lot of people. They just want a seat at the table. They don't actually want I'm trying to cut the legs off the table and put the table on the floor so we can all fucking get at the yummy food on the table. I don't need a seat at the table and need to like leave people down on the floor. Like, fuck that. Like, there's a difference between wanting equality and merely wanting the privilege that white people have. And Kanye falls in the latter category. And Kanye either wants to be white, wants to elevate whiteness, or he wants to be the only black guy in the room so that he can feel special, you know? And there's a lot of people out there like that. There's a lot of black people out there like that. There's a lot of other people of color out there like that. That's where a lot of anti-blackness comes from. This idea that if you step on a black person's neck, and this is for black people, motherfucking coons, as well as non-black POCs and model minorities, this idea that if, you know, you step on a black person's neck, even your fellow black person, if you black, you know, that's a stepping stone up to sit at Mass's table, you know, aspiring to whiteness, to be special. And I feel like that's what Kanye is doing, and that's what he's doing with this art, and emulating this white art, and filtering his own creations through this white gaze. And some people actually said some stuff to me on Twitter about this. Let's not act as if optics don't matter. Kanye copies white art as if black art doesn't exist, because him and a bunch of other rappers think the highest forms of art are created by white artists. When they mention or aspire to be the Picassos and Louis Vuittons, they feel it puts them in a different class. It goes for art, fashion, music, you know, brands. And again, this was pre-Jesse Williams' speech, but, you know, he went into a little bit about brands and about brands on our bodies and about feeling like just because we have some money and we're sitting in this room, we think we made it, and we think that racism can't touch us anymore. And, you know, and instead of, again, you know, putting that money back into our communities, we give that money right back. We give that money right back to white people. We continue to create this cultural currency in our culture around the things that white people say and do. And it's very true, and it's very relevant. It's very, very, very true, and it's very relevant. So much of our cultural currency revolves around this weight that we give to whiteness and white institutions, like art, and this underlying white supremacist belief that white equals better. And that's even why I started, you know, part of why I started doing Black Friday videos, you know, like, hey, other stuff exists, black stuff exists. Black art exists, black toilet paper exists, black lotion exists, black hair care products exist, black, you know, leather goods exist, you know, like, and it really, you know, when Famous came out, that was just really what struck me, you know, this idea that Kanye is recreating this white aesthetic over and over and over again, and really filtering his art through the white gaze. And I know the Kanye fans are gonna like bug out, but this really isn't about Kanye specifically. Like I said, it's bigger than just Kanye. The only person that I really, really know of in the public eye that really, really publicly tries is probably FLOTUS, Michelle Obama. She wears a lot of Black American designers, and brings light to a lot of Black American designers. She tries a little bit more than most. So it's not really about Kanye specifically. It's about, you know, the nature of art. Art is filtered through the white gaze, inspiration, you know, versus replication, and what is considered serious art, even worthy of replication within the white gaze. So yeah, interesting. Think about it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about some of your own art, you know, and your own, because I know that this is something that affects a lot of people that create, you know, like you take an art class and you draw a brown person and the teacher's like, why are you drawing that brown person? You know, ways that it's reinforced over and over that, like, art has to be white for it to be, like, important, serious, impactful, you know, things like that. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Food for thought as always. Links in the description box. See you guys next time. Peace.